So your nonprofit is looking to fundraise in Michigan? That's fantastic. But before you dive in, you've got to know the rules. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what you need to do to stay compliant and protect your mission.
Welcome, everyone. This is part of our multi-state fundraising compliance series, brought to you by the folks at Ironwood Registrations. Our whole goal here is to make these often confusing rules easy to understand for busy nonprofit leaders like you.
You know, a lot of nonprofits believe that once they get that coveted tax-exempt status from the IRS, they're good to go, everywhere. But is that really how it works? The short answer is nope. Most states, and that includes Michigan, have their own set of fundraising rules.
So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with understanding the basic requirement, then walk through the initial registration process. We'll also dive into key financial reporting rules, some common and very important registration exemptions, how to maintain compliance year after year, and finally how this all fits into multi-state fundraising.
Okay, first things first. Who is actually in charge of all this? Well, in Michigan, charitable solicitations are regulated by the Attorney General's Charitable Trust Section. That's the office you need to know. They're the ones who oversee fundraising compliance in the state.
So, who actually needs to register? This is a really key point. It's not about where your office is located, it's all about where your donors are. If you're reaching out to people in Michigan, whether you're based there or not, these rules are for you.
And you might be wondering, what exactly counts as solicitation? Well, the state defines it very broadly. It's not just about sending out mailers or making phone calls. Think about that donate button on your website, your email blasts, your social media campaigns, and even your fundraising events. Essentially, if you're asking for a donation, you are soliciting.
All right, so you've determined you need to register. How do you actually get it done? Let's walk through the initial steps for filing with the state.
The process really breaks down into 4 main steps. First, you've got to gather all your key documents, things like your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and your IRS determination letter. Then, you'll complete the state's application form, you'll need to designate a registered agent in Michigan, and finally, you submit the whole package to the Attorney General's office.
Now, here's some really good news, something you don't see very often. Unlike many other states, Michigan does not charge a filing fee for charitable registration or for renewals. Yep, you heard that right, it's $0. That's a pretty welcome surprise for most nonprofits.
Okay, so you're registered, but compliance isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. Now we need to talk about Michigan's financial reporting rules, which are directly tied to how much your organization is receiving in contributions.
As you can see, the requirements really scale with your annual contributions. If your organization brings in between $300,000 and $550,000, you're going to need a reviewed financial statement. But if you cross that $550,000 mark, a full audit is required. A review provides limited assurance, while an audit, as you probably know, is a much deeper dive into your financials.
And this next part is absolutely critical when you're calculating those totals. The state is very specific. Government grants are excluded from that calculation. However, gross revenue from fundraising events must be included. This is one of those nuances that can easily be missed. Now let's talk about exemptions. Not every single organization needs to register. Michigan does have several exemptions, but, and this is a big but, they are not automatic. They come with very specific conditions. Let's dig into them. Okay, the one you'll hear about most often is for small organizations. If you receive less than $25,000 in contributions annually, you may be exempt. But here is the major catch. You also cannot pay anyone for fundraising services. This restriction is incredibly strict and can even include paying your own employees for their fundraising time. So, if there is one thing to remember about exemptions in Michigan, it's this. They are not automatic. You can't just look at the rules and assume you qualify. You actually have to formally apply for an exemption by filing a request with the Attorney General and providing the documents to prove you meet the criteria.
Beyond that small organization rule, there are a few other types of entities that might also be exempt. We're talking about groups like religious organizations, accredited educational institutions, hospitals, and government entities. But again, the common theme here is that they typically need to apply for it.
Remember how I said registration isn't a one-time thing? Well, let's look at what you need to do every single year to stay compliant.
This timeline really helps lay it all out. It all starts with your fiscal year end. From that date, you have 6 months to get your renewal filing in. Your registration officially expires about 1 month after that deadline, so it is super important to file on time to avoid any lapse in your ability to fundraise.
So what happens if you're running behind? Well, if you need more time,
Michigan does allow for a 5-month extension. However, you have to be proactive about it. This extension must be requested in writing before your original filing deadline passes.
Finally, let's zoom out a little and put Michigan into the larger picture. If your fundraising efforts are national, then understanding each state's unique rules is absolutely key to running a successful and compliant campaign. At the end of the day, staying compliant isn't just about paperwork. It's about protecting the heart of your organization, your mission, your reputation, and the trust you've worked so incredibly hard to build with your supporters. So as you move forward, take a moment to ask yourself and your team, is your fundraising strategy working in harmony with your compliance obligations, or are you unintentionally putting your organization at risk?
Michigan's rules are really designed to promote transparency and protect donors. If your organization could use some expert help managing these requirements, Ironwood Registration specializes in helping nonprofits stay compliant all across the country. You can learn more at ironwoodregistrations.com.